Story 1. When I was 13, not 12, I had this crazy idea. I dreamed of loading a bunch of camping gear onto my bicycle and disappearing for a year to ride around the country. Also, when I was 13, I began to see signs of trouble in my family. When I was 17, those family troubles culminated in my parents' divorce. And when I was 20, I finally set off on the bike camping trip I had dreamed about for so long. The 13-year-old me would have been thrilled to hear that the trip actually happened, and he would not be entirely surprised by the divorce and its lingering effects to this day. But the 12-year-old me would have had no idea what was coming. Story 2. All the things I said I would always remember and never do as an adult, I have largely forgotten and now probably do. Story 3. I never became the first man on Mars. That had always been my plan. I guess technically I could still be the first. Story 4. For almost 9 years I have worked 1 minute from a large water park and have never gone there. Story 5. Sometimes, when I'm not paying attention, my mom's words slip right out of my mouth. Story 6. We never achieved that swan status. We are still an ugly duckling. Story 7. I have a child who is taller than I am. I am not tall, and I never pictured being shorter than my 13-year-old child. Story 8. I, too, don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life. Story 9. I have not gotten married. It was something I just assumed would happen, and yet here we are and I am still single. I think he would also be surprised at how rough my teenage years were. Story 10. It turned out he would become a scientist after all. For a poor country kid living in a dirt-floored house, that seemed unsurmountable at the time. Story 11. That the brother I once hated would become my best friend. Edit. I left this comment before bed and came back to find awards. Thank you all for the awards. This never happens to me here. It warms my little heart to see so many people with so much love for their brothers. Story 12. I actually like bees now and want to pursue beekeeping someday. I used to hate all bugs, but after researching them I realized bees aren't so bad. I still dislike other bugs, though. Story 13. I actually like physical activity. I just did not enjoy the physical education class. Story 14. I own an ice cream shop. I posted my response, went to bed, and woke up to find it had blown up. I will also add that because of my ice cream shop, I was a contestant on Chopped. 12-year-old me would be even more shocked by that. Story 15. I would still sit down for an all-night session of Dungeons and Dragons. Story 16. Hey, you know that girl over there you think is really weird? You are going to marry her. Story 17. I do math for a living. Fucking math. He would have been so upset. Edit. Wow. I did not expect so many replies to this of all posts. There must be a lot of accidental mathematicians out there. I should have been more specific. I am a financial analyst, so I work with numbers and spreadsheets and that kind of stuff all day. Not even the cool kind of math that helps us get into space or anything. More like, yeah, last year we spent 45% more on LaCroix for the office than in the previous year. So maybe less LaCroix this year? Edit 2. For more clarity, all I ever wanted to be was a musician. I even went to school for music. I still play pretty much every day. I just never made a living from it. So I went from rock and roll to profit and loss, as it were. Story 18. I have heard a pilot scream Mayday before ejecting. I am an air traffic controller. Story 19. I would be a firefighter. Yes, you get to ride in the fire truck. Story 20. I feared that my father would die young. Both of his parents lived well into their 90s. He was athletic, a non-smoker, and not a risk-taker. He also turned out to be the only one in his family to get cancer, a particularly deadly type. Story 21. I'm on my way to becoming a doctor. My 12-year-old self would have screamed, ranted that doctors were the scariest people, and said that hospitals drove you nuts. Back then, I wanted to be a pilot. Story 22. I am 25 and still have not bought the remote-controlled car I promised myself. Story 23. I found a girl who buys me Star Wars Lego at Christmas. Story 24. How little have I accomplished? How many emotions were canceled? Story 25. I learned to prioritize myself, and I am not responsible for upholding anyone else's well-being or happiness anymore. Thanks for my first awards. Friends, someone asked me to elaborate, so here you go if you are curious. Trigger warning: childhood abuse. It happened because of the responsibilities I carried my whole life. 1. I was the oldest child of a single mother who was tormented by mental illness. 2. My younger brother was born with autism. I cared for most of his needs from a very young age. One of my earliest memories is looking after my younger siblings alone for a long period when I was 4 and they were 2. We were often left alone. 3. Because of my mother's struggles, she did not work. So she instilled in me the constant fear of freezing, dehydrating, or starving to death when I was 6. 4. This was also when I was being molested. I did not understand what was happening. I could tell he was lonely and wanted to help him. I was told not to tell anyone. 5. I started my first job paid in cash and working under the table at age 12. Throughout my teens, I worked as many as 3 jobs at a time. The work was largely unpleasant and I was financially exploited. I was sometimes paid as little as $2 to $3 per hour, but I was so desperate that I took the jobs anyway. 6. I also had to maintain perfect grades to keep up appearances. Thankfully, those grades and a spotless record secured me a full scholarship based on financial need to my dream school. In summary, my mother and others in my life were abusive. My younger brother needed me. I had to parent myself, my mother, and my younger siblings while acing school and financially supporting us. The payoff was great when I finally got away from them at age 18 and started therapy at 19. Things got really dark before they got better. Now I am happy, healthy, and safe. Surprisingly, nobody died when I was not there to hold everyone together. Story 26. I am still alive. I was suicidal and depressed at 12 years old. And I still am. I hope I will get better eventually, but it has been 23 years and I have not gotten better yet. Story 27. I'm not a super successful, rich, smart doctor or scientist with a Nobel Prize and a bright future ahead of me, as every adult told me I would be. Story 28. I would be answering a hypothetical question about my 12-year-old self on an internet forum using my phone. Story 29. I can run 6 miles without stopping once. I still can't believe it sometimes. The human body is amazing. Story 30. My 12-year-old self would put a beat down on my adult self for dropping out of college and using marijuana every day. He was probably in better shape and would easily win the fight. Story 31. I never thought I would become a heroin addict. I have gotten my life together and have almost a year clean, but these have still been strange and dark times. Thank you so much to everyone who replied and gave awards. It means the world to me. I am trying to stay clean, but battling a psychotic mental illness makes it extremely difficult. These replies keep me going when nothing else does. Thank you again. Story 32. The only thing preventing me from ending my life is my dogs. He would be totally stoked that I have dogs. Edit. I am fine. Even after they are gone, I will probably keep going out of spite. I am sorry you are feeling this way. Are you safe right now? If you are in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number. For example, in the United States, dial 988. If you are not in immediate danger, consider contacting a trusted person or a crisis line for support. If you would like, I can help find local resources or stay with you here. Story 33. I never thought my mother would actually leave my abusive stepdad. I thought it would take a miracle, and that miracle came. A few years ago, I had been preparing my soon-to-be wife for the expectation that we would never visit that side of the family because it was not safe. It all turned out much better than I ever imagined. Story 34. I lived with strippers on 2 different occasions. Story 35. My 12-year-old self would never have believed that both my biological parents would die. I might have expected it from my father, but my mother died earlier. She also would not have believed that I would reach 40 years old. 12-year-old me always said I would not make it to 30. Nor would she have believed that I would face 2 battles with a brain tumor and, so far, win both. I'm sorry, 12-year-old me. I just want to live to prove some people wrong, to show that I am worthy and capable. Am I stubborn? Yes. I'm in it for the long run. Update. I never expected this to get so much attention. Thank you for the awards and the kind responses. They are much appreciated. Story 36. My younger self would never have believed I would go to university and earn multiple degrees. I was barely literate in 4th grade and a bit of a late bloomer, I guess. Story 37. All those friends and family do not stick around as you get older. Story 38. 1. I got into a good college, graduated, and obtained a good job. 2. I smoked cigarettes for a few years in college and afterward. It was out of character. 3. I have a wife and 2 planned children at age 32. 4. My household income is currently as high as my parents' ever was. They would not believe that, which tells you everything you need to know about them. Story 39. How I would feel about Jeff. Jeff was a really big deal in middle school. We went to different elementary schools, so I had not heard of him before middle school, but as soon as I arrived his name was everywhere. He was the toughest kid in our grade, the most athletic, the best looking, and the coolest according to both the boys and the girls. The boys wanted to be his friend or were wary of him because he gave the impression he was not someone to make angry. The girls loved him. He dated a girl a year ahead of us who was the most popular in her grade, which was basically unheard of. But he did it. He was in my class in 6th grade, and despite his coolness and toughness, he had problems controlling himself. He acted out by causing mischief and trouble, smoked cigarettes on school grounds, and occasionally got physical with anyone who provoked him. Because of this, he got detentions and suspensions. That year, our class had a field trip. I do not remember the destination, but I remember the bus ride. Jeff and I were on the same bus, and for reasons I still do not know, he decided to sit next to me. On the way there, he talked about different things. I was passive and awestruck, so I mostly listened and asked questions. At some point, he started talking about his home life and said that his father would hit him in the head. He said it while looking down, breathing heavily, his head bobbing as if he were about to cry, though no tears fell. On the bus ride back, we stopped at a place with vending machines. I went to get a snack and a drink. I got the drink, but when I tried to get the snack, something went wrong. I cannot remember exactly whether I came up short on cash or the machine ate my money. Whatever happened, I could not get the snack and I was hungry. Without being asked or told, Jeff stepped in front of me, put $1 into the machine, and got the snack for me. I looked at him, surprised, and he nodded. We sat next to each other on the ride back. Later that year, we had a substitute teacher who was a middle-aged woman. Some kids were acting out and I was laughing. She yelled at us to shut up, grabbed me by the shoulders, and pushed me down into my chair. I was frightened. When class ended, Jeff grabbed me, put his arm around me, and pulled me down the hallway to the principal's office. I was confused and afraid. I tripped a couple of times because he was pushing me and I did not know where we were going. In the office, Jeff did the talking. I sat in silence and nodded when the principal asked if what Jeff said was true. The principal had had numerous run-ins with Jeff and was wary of him. But I remember the concerned look on his face while Jeff explained what happened. The principal said he would look into the incident. At the time, I assumed Jeff was using me to cause trouble, but I was too afraid to say I did not want to go to the office. Jeff was expelled early in 8th grade. Word spread quickly because he was such a big deal. I do not remember the exact reason. He disappeared in 2003, and I assumed I would never see him again. He was off my radar for years. In my freshman year of high school, I heard he was attending a Catholic school in our county, and that was all I knew. In the winter of 2008, when I was a senior, I was at a friend's house after a party. Seemingly out of nowhere, Jeff showed up with a guy I had been friends with earlier. I had not seen Jeff since 2003. He was still big, about 6'3", and still had that socially and physically dominant presence. He playfully pushed the guy he came with, nearly knocking him off balance. That alpha, dominant thing was his nature. The host and the guy who nearly fell smiled at Jeff and asked if he remembered my last name. Jeff stared at me for about 10 seconds, then stepped closer, looked me in the eyes, and extended his hand. He did not say anything. He held my hand tightly. We looked into each other's eyes for about 10 seconds. Then he let go and backed away slowly. We kept glancing at each other. That was the last time I saw him before he died. A few years ago, Jeff died of a heroin overdose. He was 27. At some point, his father, who had been abusive when Jeff was a child, left the family, likely when Jeff was about 15 or 16. Jeff, his mother, and his little sister had to leave our town and move to a more rundown area. He did not finish high school at the Catholic school. It appears he was either expelled or could not continue because of tuition. He finished at a less supportive public school and later fell into a drug crowd. This was sadly not surprising given that his older brother had overdosed on heroin and died at 18 when Jeff and I were in 7th grade. I remember people whispering about that at the time. It took me until I was 30 to put my brief but meaningful moments with Jeff together. I had spent my life thinking he was the school bully and that I was afraid of him, but I eventually realized I never saw him bully anyone and he never bullied me. On the bus, he was grateful that I listened when he talked about his father, and when I needed help at the vending machines, he stepped in for me. When the substitute teacher hurt me, that happened after the bus incident, and Jeff was trying to help me because he cared. When I saw him at the party years later, he truly remembered me and those moments we had shared. I am truly sad that he is gone. As a kid, I would never have expected to feel this way or to imagine he would die young. He was the last person I would have thought would not make it, but his demons and troubles took him. Once I understood Jeff, I began thinking of him as a legend of my childhood. Eventually, I realized that calling him a legend does not fully express what he means to me. In a life filled with hurt and pain from people I once called friends and family, and from other abuse, Jeff is one of the only people whose friendship and memory are not tainted by time or by how people later treated me. All he ever was to me was good, respectful, kind, decent, caring, supportive, fearless, empathetic, friendly, and true. He was never anything bad to me, and he is the best friend I never had. He is not just a legend. He is my hero. Story 40. Sorry, kiddo. You did not make it as a professional wrestler, and you realized that being a musician would not pay the bills either. Story 41. Someday I will earn a doctor of philosophy. I grew up in a very poor family. My mother worked 3 jobs and we still barely made ends meet. I always dreamed of becoming a prominent doctor or lawyer and becoming very wealthy, but part of me knew that would never happen because we could not afford college. I joined the military and used government veterans education benefits to fund my undergraduate and master's degrees, and I was just accepted into a fully funded doctor of philosophy program. So it will not cost me a dime. Give it about 4 years and I will be Dr. Validus Rex. A doctor of philosophy is far from a guarantee of riches, but it is still an enormous accomplishment that would have sounded impossible to my younger self. Honestly, it is still hard to believe. Story 42. I feared my husband-to-be would shake hands with my father, who is from Sinaloa, Mexico. I was terrified about being attracted to men as a Latino at 12 and even more afraid that my super conservative family would find out. After a while, I decided to let my family choose whether they wanted to be part of my life. Fortunately, I was pleasantly surprised. Story 43. You're still alive at 30, and your boyfriend will be killed. Life is wild and hurtful, but you made it this far. Story 44. How many tattoos do I have? Back then, I never thought I would get any. Story 45. The awkwardness and pain I went through actually had a light at the end of the tunnel. Story 46. I am not dirt poor and can buy all the games I want, but I choose not to. Story 47. I use a wheelchair now. I no longer have a uterus. I need 8 joint replacements, and I have had stage 4 cancer 3 times. I am not even 23 yet. Story 48. I eat so many goddamn vegetables. Picked up in my early 30s. My meals are now about 90% vegetables. I was a picky eater as a kid. I did not realize it was because I grew up eating steamed broccoli and grilled chicken almost every night, a pretty barbaric, if healthy, way to be raised. Anyway, I got into cooking, expanded my palate, and now it's Fiber City. I guess I'm healthier now, which is nice, but more importantly, eating a giant bowl of vegetables makes me feel like a goddamn brontosaurus, which is all I ever wanted growing up. Story 49. My political and religious views have changed. 18-year-old me would have been just as surprised. Edit. In case anyone is interested, I did not expect this comment to cause a lot of discussion. Here is more information. I used to be extremely conservative. I still remember being a freshman in college and sticking up for it. I was definitely homophobic. As I went through college, I slowly realized that I had been brainwashed into hating people and things. I had Muslim, gay, and liberal friends. My biggest revelation was breaking free of the identity politics that plagued my childhood. I voted for Donald Trump in 2016, and it was not too long before I realized my mistake. I consider myself a moderate now, and I like to think I can see through the nonsense that politicians sling around. More recently, I have abandoned Christianity. I was never a very active Christian, but the COVID-19 pandemic really tested my faith. I saw so many Christians favor prayer and healing over masks and quarantine. It got to the point where it felt like everyone was actively brainwashing themselves with hokey mythology. I live in the Bible Belt, and it is unlikely that I will ever be able to come out about it. My career would be damaged by people thinking I was an evil atheist. Story 50. Although I still like nerdy stuff, I look like the total opposite of the kind of guy who would. Story 51. I did, in fact, go on a date with a boy and, gasp, get married to one. I'm also bisexual. I think my 12-year-old self would be more surprised by that first thing. Story 52. I probably took part in all the worldly pleasures. My 12-year-old self was very religious. Story 53. My confidence comes from within. I used to be the most awkward kid imaginable. My hair is short. Sorry, kid, you wanted Rapunzel hair, but instead you got a pixie cut. I'm graduating from college this semester. Dyslexia? It never stopped me. It only slowed me down a bit. I'm dating a popular jock. He is attractive, sweet, a great cuddler, and a big softie. Story 54. Ugh. I am in my late 30s and single and childless. I grew up very sheltered and religious, seeing life as black and white and expecting a fairy tale. As I matured, I had my heart broken because I made stupid choices, and I realized that being single is infinitely better than being with the wrong person. Being childless hurts sometimes, but I do not think I could do it on my own. So I spend my time being the best auntie I can be. Most of the time, I do not feel like I am missing out. Nowadays, I am okay with being single, and when I am not, I go look at shoes that cost more than I earn, try them on, and ask if they have them in a color they will not have, then leave saying, "What a shame, if only they were." When I am tired, I go out and eat a huge pile of ribs because I cannot eat those in front of people I am trying to impress. Story 55. My 12-year-old self would envy my accomplishments at 35. Story 56. I no longer feel responsible for protecting my parents or holding the whole family together. I made my way toward a prestigious life and then turned away from it. People will love me for who I am all the time, not just when it is convenient. Story 57. I never thought I would work up the courage to ask a girl out, and that she would say yes. Story 58. I am proud that I was able to perform on stage in front of an audience with fire. I am semi-retired and was in the industry for more than 7 years, but I always think about that when I doubt myself. To be specific, I danced with fire props on stage in front of crowds. I performed both with a group and as a solo act at festivals, parties, weddings, and Burning Man. I was very shy as a child and had no dance skills at the time. I learned belly dance and how to perform with props and fire in my mid-20s. Story 59. I wanted a big family, like 7 children. 12-year-old me would be really sad about how badly my body handles pregnancy and how traumatic and dangerous it is for me. But she would be proud to know I am still alive despite terrible depression and multiple suicide attempts at that age. She would love to know we are adopting one of our beloved foster children. Story 60. I am doing the same work I did at 12. Information technology support. School and college did not help my career. Everything I learned working with my grandfather at his Radio Shack helped me earn a 6-figure income. Thank you, grandfather. Story 61. All that hard work would not pay off for me. A series of terrible events caused me to lose almost everything I had worked for. I thought that by 41 I would have a secure job, a house, and a car. Instead, at 41 I lost my job of almost 20 years due to severe burnout and a permanent injury. I also had a small business that I spent almost as long building that failed because of the coronavirus pandemic, and I have never been able to afford a house or a car. Everyone else my age that I know seems secure and successful. If I had known what would happen at 12, I would have killed myself then. At least it is still an option and probably the only one I have left at this point. I am really sorry you are feeling so overwhelmed. If you are thinking about harming yourself now, please contact emergency services or a crisis hotline immediately. If you are in the United States, call or text 988. If you are elsewhere, please contact your local emergency number or a local crisis line. If you want, I can help find resources in your area or stay with you here. Are you safe right now? Story 62. 1. I microdose psilocybin mushrooms for depression. 2. I use cannabis and cannabidiol products medically for anxiety. 3. I enjoy anal sex. Story 63. I bought my first house with the love of my life and now own 14 pet rats. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.